In the quiet but restless town of Auchi, located in Edo State, two well-known rival brotherhoods, the Supreme Vikings Confraternity and the Black Axe, have shared a long and bitter history that stretches back decades. Their clashes have often left the community uneasy, as each confrontation seemed to reopen old wounds that never truly healed. One of the earliest and most remembered incidents between these two groups took place in 1996, within the walls of Auchi Polytechnic. It was said to be one of the most intense moments in the history of campus confraternity conflicts in the region, a confrontation that would go on to define the tense relationship between the Vikings and the Black Axe for years to come. Since then, the peace between both sides had always been fragile, with occasional disputes flaring up like dry grass catching fire. Fast forward to 2025, and the cycle seemed to repeat itself once again. Another troubling event unfolded, stirring up fresh tension and suspicion. This time, the spark came from the mysterious death of a man known popularly as Odogu, a member of the Supreme Vikings Confraternity. The incident happened in the early hours of the morning, around 2 a.m., near the small store Odogu operated. According to those who knew him, he was a quiet man from Imo State, someone who mostly kept to himself. Although he was known to be a Viking by identity, he was not actively involved in confraternity activities within Auchi. He lived a low-profile life and rarely associated with other members of his brotherhood in the area. That was why news of his sudden death came as a shock to many. There had been no visible signs of trouble, no recent clashes, and no brewing tension between the Vikings and any rival group at the time. His death appeared to come out of nowhere, and that mystery only deepened the confusion. As the story spread through town, different theories began to circulate. Some believed Odogu might have had personal issues with someone outside the confraternity circle. Others whispered that it could have been connected to a business disagreement gone wrong. Yet, with no clear evidence, everything remained speculation. What stood out most was that no rival group, not even the Black Axe, came forward to claim responsibility. That silence was unusual. In most confraternity-related incidents, there was often a clear trail of blame or retaliation. But this time, there was none. The Vikings, unsure of who to hold accountable, did not launch any revenge mission or respond against any known rivals. Weeks passed, and the case of Odogu became one of those unresolved events that left everyone guessing. Some described it as an assassination, while others saw it as a tragic coincidence unrelated to confraternity issues. But deep down, among the Vikings in Auchi, there was still a quiet unease, the feeling that something beneath the surface was not right, and that perhaps this was only the beginning of something larger. In a town with a history of brotherhood rivalries and unfinished scores, silence was rarely a sign of peace. Sometimes, it was only the calm before another storm. Less than a week after the mysterious death of Odogu, the peace in Auchi was once again shattered. Another member of the Supreme Vikings Confraternity, popularly known as Dust, was attacked and tragically lost his life. Like Odogu, Dust's death happened under suspicious and unclear circumstances, leaving the town filled with fear, rumors, and confusion. Dust was well known in the neighborhood. He wasn't a troublemaker or someone who looked for fights. He earned a humble living as a barber, running a small shop where young men often stopped by to get clean haircuts and share jokes about everyday life. His barbershop was a lively place during the day, filled with the hum of clippers, loud laughter, and the chatter of regular customers. But all of that changed one evening when Dust was attacked inside his own shop. The news spread like wildfire across Auchi. Many residents couldn't believe it. To them, Dust was simply a hard-working young man trying to survive, not someone deeply involved in confraternity matters. But to members of the Supreme Vikings Confraternity, this second loss, coming just days after Odogu's death, was too much to ignore. At that point, it became clear that someone was targeting them. Yet, the most puzzling part was that no rival group came forward to take responsibility for either of the incidents. In the world of brotherhood rivalries, this silence was unusual. Normally, if one group carried out an attack, word would spread quickly, either through whispers on the street or messages passed around secretly. But this time, there was nothing. No clue. No name. No claim. That silence only deepened the suspicion and anger among the Vikings in Auchi. Their members gathered secretly, trying to piece together what was happening. Some believed it was a coordinated strike meant to weaken their influence in the area. Others argued it could be personal vendettas disguised as confraternity attacks. But one thing was certain, the Vikings could no longer sit and watch. In their search for answers, they decided to turn to what they called their spiritual path, a tradition deeply rooted in their own belief system. The Vikings consulted a spiritual guide known among them as Selina the fortune teller. According to their norms, Selina was not just an ordinary fortune teller, she was believed to possess insight into hidden matters, someone who could reveal the unseen. After the consultation, it was reportedly revealed that the attacks were being carried out by their long-standing rivals, the Black Axe. The revelation caused an uproar within the Vikings camp. To many of them, it made perfect sense. After all, the Vikings and the Black Axe had been enemies for years, and Auchi had witnessed several violent clashes between both groups in the past. However, there was still something unusual about the situation. Around that time, the governor of Edo State had begun taking strong measures against confraternity activities. He had instructed security agencies to clamp down on every form of court-related violence. Several operations had been carried out across the state, and properties linked to confraternity activities were being demolished, including a building said to belong to members of the Black Axe. This strict action by the state government made it dangerous for any confraternity to take public responsibility for attacks. No one wanted to attract the attention of the authorities. So, to the Vikings, it made sense that if the Black Axe were truly behind the killings, they would choose to remain silent to avoid government punishment. Still, despite what the fortune teller had said, not everyone was convinced. Some Vikings quietly doubted whether the Black Axe were really responsible. There were whispers that it could have been outsiders, personal enemies, or even people with business grudges trying to stir up conflict between the two rival brotherhoods. But whether the claim was true or not, the atmosphere had already changed. The Vikings felt betrayed and under attack. Emotions were high, tempers were rising, and suspicion filled the air. And in a place like Auchi, with its long history of confraternity rivalry, such tension rarely ended without consequences. For many, it felt like the battle line had already been drawn, even before the truth was known. The death of Dust, the young barber and member of the Supreme Vikings Confraternity, marked a turning point in the growing tension that had been brewing silently in Auchi. For days, the streets were filled with whispers, speculation, and unease. People spoke in low tones, glancing over their shoulders as if afraid that even the walls could hear them. The Vikings were angry, deeply angry, and determined to respond. Not long after Dust's burial, the atmosphere in Auchi changed. Late one evening, reports began to circulate that a member of the Black Axe, known as Billy, had been attacked. The incident happened around a location popularly called Egbaira Camp, an area known for its nightlife and busy evening crowd. Witnesses said Billy was taken by surprise. Chaos broke out as people ran in different directions, unsure of what was happening. Billy was rushed to the hospital immediately after the attack. For hours, his friends and associates waited outside the emergency ward, praying that he would survive. Unfortunately, the news that came out later that night broke many hearts. Billy didn't make it. His passing sent a cold wave through the Black Axe community in Auchi. It was clear now that a new cycle of vengeance had begun. Although the Vikings did not officially claim responsibility, their members made it known in private that they could no longer stay quiet while their own people were being attacked. According to them, if unknown men could strike their members without anyone owning up to it, then they too had the right to defend themselves without claiming responsibility. In their words, if no one wants to take the blame, then no one should expect us to take it either. The truth was, both groups were being cautious. The governor of Edo State had intensified the fight against confraternity violence. Government security forces were everywhere, conducting raids, making arrests, and demolishing any building suspected to be used by cult groups. It was a dangerous time to be associated with such conflicts, and no group wanted to attract official attention by admitting involvement in any attack. Still, despite the fear of government action, retaliation continued in the shadows. A few days after Billy's death, another incident occurred. Members of the Black Axe reportedly attacked a Viking member in Auchi. Fortunately, the victim managed to escape with injuries, narrowly surviving what could have been another fatal hit. The news spread quickly among the Vikings, heightening their sense of insecurity and anger. But the tension didn't stop there. Shortly afterward, members of the Black Axe allegedly lured another Viking member into a trap. According to reports, a friend had called him, asking for help to verify something on Telegram, a harmless request that didn't raise any suspicion. But as soon as the Viking member arrived at the location, a group of men ambushed him. It would have ended badly if not for the quick response of people nearby. Local residents, recognizing what was happening, stood up for the young man and chased away the attackers. The intervention saved his life, but it also exposed how far the conflict had gone. The fact that everyday people were now being drawn into the violence showed how dangerous things had become in Auchi. For a while, there was uneasy calm again. But everyone knew it was only temporary. Then came the most shocking incident, the attack on a Viking member known as Suraj. Suraj was said to be a friendly, well-known figure in his area, respected for his calm nature. One evening, a hit squad suspected to belong to the Black Axe launched an attack on him. But just like in the previous case, the local residents rose in defense. People in the neighborhood came out in anger, chasing the attackers through the streets. In their panic, the hit squad abandoned their getaway car and fled on foot. The residents, furious over the repeated bloodshed in their community, set the car ablaze right there on the street. Smoke filled the air as people shouted in frustration, demanding an end to the violence that had turned their once peaceful town into a place of fear. Suraj was quickly rushed to the hospital. For days, he fought for his life, with friends and family hoping for a miracle. There were signs of improvement at first, a small ray of hope that maybe, just maybe, he would survive. But after a while, his condition worsened, and sadly, he passed away. His death broke the hearts of many, both within and outside the Viking circle. To the residents of Auchi, it was another painful reminder of how deeply rooted the confraternity rivalry had become, a battle where even those who wanted peace could still fall victim to old grudges and unseen enemies. By now, Auchi was on edge. Every corner of the town carried tension. Every night felt uncertain. The streets that once buzzed with laughter and life now carried the heavy silence of fear and expectation. Everyone knew that with each loss, the anger on both sides was growing, and that the next chapter of the conflict was bound to be even more unpredictable. After the heartbreaking death of Suraj, emotions among members of the Supreme Vikings Confraternity in Auchi reached a boiling point. Many of them felt that enough was enough, they could no longer sit back while their members were being taken down one after another. The mood in their camp was tense and filled with grief. Every conversation led back to the same topic, revenge. So, not long after Suraj's burial, the Viking hit squad decided to strike back. Their target this time was a highly placed member of the rival Black Axe, a man known across Auchi as Cosmos, who was believed to be the zonal leader of the group in that area. According to reports, Cosmos was a bold and confident man, known for his influence within the Black Axe family. On that fateful evening, he was said to be relaxing at a local bar, sharing drinks and laughter with a few of his close associates. The atmosphere at the bar was casual and lively, just another normal evening in Auchi. But unknown to them, trouble was already on its way. The Viking hit squad, reportedly traveling in a car, drove quietly through the streets until they reached the location. Witnesses said the car slowed down near the bar, and before anyone could react, tension erupted. The Vikings made their move, but by some stroke of luck, Cosmos and his friends noticed them early enough. In the confusion that followed, Cosmos and the other axemen escaped, running in different directions before the Vikings could close in. Shots rang out in the air, causing panic as residents nearby screamed and fled for safety. But when the dust settled, Cosmos was nowhere to be found. He had narrowly escaped what would have been a deadly encounter. The failed attempt only intensified the frustration among the Vikings. Their mission that night had been to avenge Suraj, but their main target had slipped through their hands. Determined not to leave empty-handed, the group continued to look for other members of the rival confraternity. It wasn't long before another name surfaced, AK, a well-known member of the Black Axe in Auchi. But AK's story was different. He was widely regarded as a peaceful and humble man, someone who had long distanced himself from confraternity activities. People who knew him described him as a family man, devoted to his wife and children, and focused on living a quiet, honest life. Unfortunately, the violent circle of revenge that had engulfed Auchi did not spare him. The Vikings, still burning with anger over Suraj's death, reportedly tracked AK down and launched an attack on him. He didn't survive. The news of his passing spread sorrow throughout the town. Many residents, even those not involved in any confraternity, mourned him deeply. His death became a painful reminder that walking away from a confraternity does not always erase one's past connections. Once a person has been part of such groups, their name and identity often remain known, and in times of conflict, that history can still put them in danger. AK's story left a powerful message behind. Friends and neighbors who spoke about him kept repeating the same words: he was a good man who had already left that life behind. But sadly, in Auchi's cycle of retaliation, innocence and guilt had begun to blur. The tragedy of AK's death stands as a warning to young people everywhere, a reminder that joining a confraternity or getting involved in any criminal activity brings nothing but pain, regret, and loss. It destroys friendships, families, and entire communities. The truth is simple and clear. No one wins in cult violence. No one truly gains from revenge. The best decision is never to join in the first place. And for anyone who has already been involved, the safest path is to relocate and start afresh, far away from the environment where the conflict began. Let this story serve as a lesson. Backhand index pointing right medium skin tone say no to cultism. Backhand index pointing right medium skin tone say no to crime and violence. Backhand index pointing right medium skin tone say yes to peace, growth, and a better life. Because at the end of the day, no matter the name, color, or symbol of any group, nothing is worth losing your future or your life for.